check. Yes, so Hairless here. Today we're back with a Faouzia request. This is for Elise. I've received many requests for this one, very consistently too. I've only heard Faouzia twice before, so please do check out those reactions if you haven't already. The cards will be up here. This one caught my eye for obvious reasons. For Elise, everyone knows that it's Beethoven's Bagatelle in A minor, but more famously known as Für Elise. I've noticed that Faouzia's version doesn't have the umlaut on the U. I wonder why, maybe something to do with copying or copyright or whatnot. Either way, I can only assume that this is heavily inspired by or related to Beethoven's work in some way or another, because the title means for Elise. It could be coincidence, she might be singing about someone called Elise, but the comments have already mentioned that it does point towards Beethoven. There are other songs that reference the famous tune or motif from Beethoven's Für Elise. One example I know is a song called For Elise in English by a band called Saint Motel, where they include a variation on the theme. Which I thought was quite cool. Maybe Faouzia might do something similar. The lyrics are on screen now. Feel free to pause and read through. Make of them what you will. So all in all, I'm intrigued. Will this be obviously classical or romantic inspired? Beethoven is often considered to be the bridge between the classical and the romantic eras. Will it bear little or no resemblance to Beethoven's music? Or will it use a fairly significant portion of the original music? Instead of me asking these questions, let's just get into it and find out.
I'll dance like a puppet on your string. I'll sing when you order me to sing. I'll ring like a desperate violin. You're so musical, an artist. You make a lie sound like it's true. You're unusual, creative, hard to do to be a muse. So play me like my name is Elise. Lie to me and say I'll never leave. Drown me in your twisted melodies. I'll pretend you wrote them all for me. I'll jump.
Alright, I think that's now the next verse. So let's do a pause here. There are some really quite interesting things here. I like it a lot from what I've heard so far. We'll go back and analyse what we've heard. So if you don't want to hear my analysis, go to the timestamp here. So from the beginning, Beethoven's opening in the original work has a very simple harmonic progression. In other words, the chords that we hear underneath. I'll play the opening of the original song and show us the chords we get. This chord is A minor. And then after that we get, which is E major. And then we go back to A minor. With A being number 1, the chords that we get are 1, move up 5, back to 1. So the chords are 1, 5, 1. Faouzia's version is in a different key, so her opening is like this. So after this, we'd expect to hear that 1 chord, which would be. Instead, though, we get. And the chord is. Which is not what we'd expect. A flat minor, not what we expect. Now this is what we would expect. So immediately there's this uncertainty underpinning the song. Because Beethoven's melody is so famous, our brains naturally expect the rest of the music to follow the opening. What we're expecting does not happen. And then we get these 2 descending lines in the right hand of the piano. Oh, they're interesting. The second one is slightly higher than the first one, but it still falls back to the same last note of the first one. It's a bigger jump, a bit more, again, unnatural feeling. Also, they're sort of over this chord in the left hand, which is peculiar considering what we've heard previously. The main chords we've heard so far are these: A flat minor, E flat minor, G flat, and then after those two descending lines, we move to D flat. A flat, E flat, G flat, D flat. Calling these chords by their letter names, it might not mean that much. So let's bring up our friend here. This is the circle of fifths. Basically, all this is showing is if you move from one to the next, you're moving 5 notes at a time. So if we look A flat to E flat, that's here to here. And then 5 again would be B flat, so up 5. And you can move either way round. If you move like this, it will just be quite a natural sounding progression. Faouzia is using it, but slightly altered. She goes from here, A flat to E flat, but instead of following it round, she actually is moving back on herself. She goes here to G flat and then to D flat, which I think is cool because whilst it is following the circle of fifths, it's also changing up a bit. That overall contributes to this fairly peculiar sound we're hearing. All right, so onto her singing. She enters. Overall, her melodic arc is slowly coming down in pitch. A bit into her singing, she does this glottal stop type effect on the word violin.
A desperate violin.
Almost like air takes over and then she continues singing. Then she suddenly jumps up against the run of this downwards in pitch motion that we've been hearing.
You're so
In harmony with the cello. The cello is an instrument that's very similar to the human voice in terms of its timbre, its sound. So they work really well together. It's a nice choice for the arrangement. The next bit that I'm about to play, it's only my 3rd time hearing Faouzia, but for several reasons this is quite similar to the previous 2 songs I've heard. The obvious thing is the fact that her voice is very unique. You know, here for example, this full chest voice of hers, it's such a Faouzia sound, it's obvious it's her. That full chest voice and then switching back to the head voice. On that line there, where she says, you make a lie sound like it's true, she moves from the head voice in the upper registers back down to the chest voice in the lower registers, which she has to do because it's lower. That move down, it's like this sinking feeling. The cello, if you notice, does a little glissando as well, which is like a little slide. I think that really highlights this sinking feeling. That sinking feeling, kind of like when you discover someone's been lying about something, suiting the lyrics very well at this point. Then just after that we get this little bit of a melody that I quite like.
play me like my name is Shelley.
This only works because they've changed the actual harmony of the music at its core, just as I mentioned at the start. If they were to use the same chord progression as Beethoven's original work, she would have to sing and then repeat that note so it fits with the surrounding harmony. If she were to sing with Beethoven's original harmony, we would get this clash here. And in general, I like the melodies she uses, especially here.
Drown me in your twisted melodies.
You know, they're quirky, they're non-standard, harmonically rich. If you've seen my videos before, you'll know that I like chromatic inflections. Here we get a couple back-to-back as part of a rising sequence.
Drown me in your twisted melodies.
If we didn't get them, the melody would just be this. And that leads into those descending piano lines we spoke about earlier, which uses the chromatic inflections as well.
I'll pretend you wrote them all for me.
Yeah, some really interesting stuff so far. All right, let's carry on.
I'll jump. Few else go say how high. I'll run like a shiver down your spine. For you, I would give you my own life. You're so musical, an artist. You make a lie sound like it's true. You're unusual, creative. How would I do to be your muse? So play me like my name is Please lie to me and say I'll never leave. Drown me in your twisted melodies. I'll pretend you wrote them all for me.
Alright, so from the lyrics earlier, yeah, I think we're getting into the oh section. So we'll do another pause here. In the comments, I saw a few people mention that when this song first came out, it was getting blocked left, right and centre in other reactions due to copyright. So I think an extra pause here before the end won't hurt. So as we've seen in the previous two Faouzia reactions, when she repeats a verse musically, even though it will have different words, she seems to implement these little changes. Here's an example just from where we left off of rhythmic augmentation. So she's now adjusting the note lengths to be a bit longer. On the words, I'll say how high.
You was gonna say how high.
Da da da, compared to the first time.
Puppet on your string.
Da da dum. The next quite cool bit suiting the lyrics, shiver down your spine. It would be an absolute crime to not descend downwards there.
Shiver down your spine.
But she goes down really low, down to here. That's low. Her range is nuts. A bit after that, again, we get this really, I think it's quite cool, this alteration between her head voice and her chest voice. Very skillful as well, maintaining the pitch perfectly.
You make a lie sound like it's true.
Yeah, just there.
It's true.
It almost sounds auto-tuned because of how accurate it is. It's an unnatural sound because of how accurate it is. Kind of like a mini yodel. And the cello here, very subtle, but it works only to exaggerate these alterations in her voice. Listen out for the cello in the background.
I sound like it's true.
Hear how it kind of comes off and then carries on? It's a similar effect from switching to the chest voice into the head voice. And again, just on her vocal accuracy, let's just listen to this bit in slow-mo. It's so pitch accurate. Normal speed. I like the arrangement. There's no beat to give us percussion, so the piano is very consistent in providing the rhythms for this reason. The piano is kind of every note change that you can hear in the background, constantly changing notes for some rhythmic drive. If we were to read it as sheet music, there'd be a lot of the shorter notes. Can you hear da, 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 da. And the cello part is intertwined with it, playing something completely different. So just there, for example, the cello was playing, which leads directly into her doubling up that really cool descending line we spoke about earlier, drawing even more attention to it and its peculiarity. Unlike last time we heard it, which was this, where she's sustaining a note underneath it. Yeah, I think it's really interesting overall. Alright, let's carry on from where we got to, that ooh section, until the end. Sorry, and just there as well, the piano in the background. This time round we hear the famous melody, but now the harmonic progression is the same as the original song. I'll just go back a few seconds and carry on. Wow, what a cool song. I love stuff like that. It's just different. Well, yeah, I mean, it's just different, isn't it? And if it's paying homage in whatever way to music from generations past, yeah, great idea. Yeah, great idea for a song. Executed very well. Right, well, let's just go over a few final bits from that last section then. I thought that in that last section we got a lot of nice contrast. She's belting powerfully, and in the background we're hearing some harsher dissonances to what we've heard before. So I'm sat here thinking that this is going to continue. But then the next line where she says an artist, it's not what I expected. Her vocal line is as simple as it can be, really. She uses an airy voice for it as well, which is a much more delicate kind of sound above a somewhat chaotic musical structure underneath. She again is working nicely in harmony with the cello there, where they both do another glissando, a slide down. Their notes together would sound like this. And the final phrase, really exaggerated dissonance here. The sustained notes, they're all dissonant and powerful as well. Moving into that blend at the top, which then leads into this melisma downwards. A very kind of Eastern sounding vocal run. That's something I imagine she probably incorporates into most of her music. We've seen it in every song so far, even though it's still only been 3. Again, vocal accuracy on that melisma. It's those notes in particular that just give it this really Eastern feel based on the scale. And for the final phrase, there's this exposed vocal line, completely a cappella by itself.
Play me like my name is...
And why this is so impactful, I think, is because they've removed the reverb effect. Probably because it would be too obvious. I noticed earlier, as soon as she started singing, that there was this really heavy echo reverb effect. I thought it was an interesting touch.
I'll dance like a puppet on your string.
You can still hear it now going. So then to suddenly have...
Play me like my name is...
Yeah, it has a big effect. And of course, to finish, it's with the expected chord that Beethoven used compared to the opening. Alright, well, there we go. I can see why everyone was recommending this one. I think it's very interesting. And I'm not using interesting as a deflection away from good, because I really liked it. I thought it was really good as well. I'm using interesting purely from a creative point of view. Interesting idea. I'm going to just keep using the word interesting here. Yeah, I liked it. And when you see harmonic changes made to throw us off our scent or what we might expect, when done well, yeah, it's just great. All right, let's leave that one there. As always, thank you very much for watching. Would appreciate a like and subscribe. Comment down below other songs by Faouzia you'd like me to react to in the future. If you enjoy my content, want to support me, vote on future polls, join the community, you can do so by joining the YouTube membership or patrons linked below. And I will see you next time.